Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader and tonight we'll be focusing on the participation of Egypt represented in His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi in the G20 summit, which was concluded today on Sunday by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and of course the main topics that were discussed and tackled, including the negative repercussions of the climate change on the entire globe and of course on the poorer nations in specific, as well as the impact of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict on the world. And we will be shedding more light on the speeches and the meetings taking place between President Abdel al-Sisi and several world leaders during his participation in the G20 summit, as President Abdel al-Sisi singled out the imbalances between the rich countries and the poor nations in terms of the climate change repercussions and of course the economic differences. But we will be starting straight away with the main top stories that took place on Sunday, and we will be starting with the main activities of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi, who returned home on Sunday after his participation in the G20 summit, which was held in the Indian capital, New Delhi. In his speech at the third and last session of the summit, President Sisi said that the efforts must be exerted to lessen the technological gap between the countries at the aim of having a better future for all the humanity. The president asserted that building the future requires swift action to deal with the challenges before they grow into unsolvable crises. He pointed out that there is an urgent need to settle the issue of debts of developing nations, which he said has dangerous economic repercussions. The head of state reiterated that the Sustainable Development Agenda must be fully implemented through providing needed financing in light of the outcomes of the Paris Climate Agreement. The president also expressed confidence in the capabilities of the G20 group to make the needed decisions and put them into action. As I said in the introduction, that we will be shedding more light on the meetings that took place between President Abdel al-Sisi and several world leaders, and one of them took place between His Excellency President Sisi and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on the sidelines of the G20 summit in the Indian capital. President Sisi had held with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan some talks. Presidential spokesperson Ahmed Fahmy said that both sides stressed the importance of boosting bilateral ties and capitalizing on the progress achieved to support the joint cooperation mechanisms. Fahmy added that the two leaders also discussed the regional cooperation as a strategic objective within the framework of mutual respect, common interest, and the true will for security and stability of the Middle East. The meeting witnessed the exchange of views over the regional developments and expanding cooperation in various domains. Meanwhile, Erdogan's office said in a statement that they both discussed the bilateral ties and the energy cooperation, as well as the regional and the global issues. Another important meeting took place between President Abdel al-Sisi and the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, as President Sisi also held talks with the German Chancellor Scholz on the sidelines of the G20 summit. The meeting discussed the cooperation and boosting coordination between the two sides in various fields, especially transportation, energy, and the industrialization. The talks also focused on means of increasing the German investments in Egypt and the economic cooperation during the upcoming period. And finally, President Abdel al-Sisi, along with the G20 leaders, led a wreath on the memorial of the Mahatma Gandhi on Sunday. President al-Sisi and the G20 leaders participated in celebration of planting trees, then in the third and final session of the New Delhi summit, which is dubbed One Future. And we will be heading to the first report of the daily debate for tonight, which comes from the statements made by His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi during his participation in the G20 summit, which focused on the imbalances between the rich and the poor countries in terms of the economic mitigation. We will be having more details in the upcoming report, so stay tuned.
President Abdel al-Sisi called for a comprehensive approach to tackle global challenges and achieve shared goals in his speech at the opening session of the G20 summit held in India. President Sisi emphasized the need for multilateral cooperation based on the UN Charter and international law to achieve common interests. Sisi said that working together is a must to shape a future order that is based on the principles of the UN Charter and international law, that maximizes the role of international institutions in responding effectively to crises and challenges. G20 leaders are meeting for a two-day summit in the Indian capital, New Delhi, under the theme One Earth, One Family, One Future. Sisi highlighted the crucial role of the G20 in addressing global financial imbalances and finding sustainable solutions to structural issues for developing countries. These solutions include addressing growing debt challenges, re-evaluating the effectiveness of development aid, and bridging finance gaps for sustainable development and a transition to a low-carbon economy. We also discussed Egypt's commitment to promoting African development, especially through its leadership of the African Union's new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD. Egypt is actively working towards African integration via the African Continental Free Trade Area as part of the AU's development agenda. Sisi also noted Egypt's commitment to addressing global threat of climate change. He recalled how Egypt hosted the 27th UN Climate Change Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh last November, where it introduced to the agenda the concept of a just transition to green economy and called for the creation of a fund to address climate losses and damages. According to Sisi, all parties must fulfill their common but differentiated responsibilities in a spirit of equity. Following through on collective decisions is crucial to maintaining trust and the efficacy of the multilateral framework. In addressing the energy crisis, Egypt announced the launch of an international forum for financing green hydrogen projects. The country aims to position itself as a regional energy hub through initiatives like the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum. Sisi also discussed efforts to combat food crises, announcing Egypt's ambitions to host a global center for grain storage and trade. On the sidelines of the G20 summit, the president discussed current developments and impacts of the Russian-Ukrainian crisis in the meeting with European Council President Charles Michel. Michel commended Egypt's efforts in mediating regional crises, managing illegal migration, and hosting significant number of refugees. Sisi also held sideline meetings meetings with other attending leaders from the European Commission, South Africa, Comoros, Brazil, Japan, China, and the World Health Organization.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I am honored to be having with me over the phone Dr. Hany Aziz, the former UN Assistant Secretary General. Dr. Hany, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you. Thank you to you and to your team.
Anytime. First of all, Dr. Hany, how would you assess the participation of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi in the G20 summit, which was hosted this time around by India and more specifically in New Delhi? And how did you see the meetings and talks that were held on the sidelines between President al-Sisi and the other world leaders?
Thank you. Thank you for putting such an important question.
Anytime.
If my recollection is right, I think this is the first participation of an Egyptian head of state to such a meeting, which represent, I think, and we all believe so, the summit of all the powers, interesting powers, powerful powers in the world. Therefore, the presence and the invitation sent to Egypt and to the President Sisi is of utmost importance. It allowed him, first of all, to know what's happening around and to have, according to information from the media, several meetings with other heads of states present there. The summit has reached some good conclusion and one project which is worrying me. The conclusion is that the summit was able to make a joint declaration, a political joint declaration at the end, in a balanced way concerning the actual war between Ukraine and the West, if we want to say, and Russia. It was balanced, I think, with the participation of Egypt in the drafting, I suppose, and that's very good. But what worries me is the declaration made by the President of the USA concerning the establishment of a major project representing a railway from India to the Mediterranean to transport goods from Asia to the Mediterranean. And this project is very tricky. One, it will circumvene the Chinese project of the
Belt and Road.
Of the Silk Road.
Yes.
Understand, and probably it's a maneuver to create disagreements within the BRICS group between India and China. We all know that the relation between the two countries was never very good. It appeased recently, and that's a very good sign. But the attempts, I see this as an attempt to undermine the progress obtained in BRICS. It will also circumvene the Suez Canal and its importance for the world trade, etc. Definitely, it's an idea now. But there is similar ideas floating in the region since few years about petrol and oil pipeline from the Emirates to the Mediterranean, a Chinese project in Israel for main railway roads, which is not existent or almost non-existent in Israel, etc. Therefore, this matter worrying me, and I hope and I'm sure that the competent bodies in Egypt will open their eyes and study fast to get Egypt either integrated in the project or the project, not implemented. It's the world of competition. Everything is based on this, and this is a matter worrying me. But coming back to your main question, about the importance of the invitation sent to Egypt. Yes, no doubt, it's a very important step. It's the first time such an invitation is sent to any of the heads of Egypt, any of the presidents, and the presence of President Sisi there definitely was fruitful, at least in having face-to-face contact with so many leaders and discussing subjects of common interest.
Yes, Dr. Hany Aziz, the former UN Assistant Secretary General, thank you very much for being with us over the phone on the daily debate for tonight. We will be having a quick break and we'll be joined after the break with Dr. Muhammad Abdel, the political analyst. So stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I am honored to be having with me over on the studio